Hello, everybody. I hope we're live and okay since we're on the air. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Aquarian Radio. And I'm your host, Janet Carol Lessin. And today we have our co-host, Theresa J Morris, and she's going to be broadcasting later. She'll download and upload onto TJ Morris ET Radio. And then we have a very special guest, Barbara JEAN Lindsey. And let me tell you a little bit about Barbara JEAN. She's an internationally acclaimed psychic, author, spiritual teacher, and inspirational speaker. She's a certified Fire Walking Instructor and Hypnotherapist and Qui Gong Medical Practitioner, Level II Reiki Initiate, 25-year Interfaith Minister and Glastonbury, England, Sister of Avalon. So she has her own show, the Cosmic Oracle Show, on Revolution Radio on, I think it's Fridays. It's Tuesdays here, but I think it's Fridays. And listeners have experienced something beyond themselves, from the extra-terrestrial, UFO and ETS to spiritual out-of-body experiences and altered states, and call and share their stories. So Barbara JEAN is joining us today, and Theresa J Morris, she's my co-host. She's an author, researcher, speaker on life mysteries and phenomenology, life and death and near-death experiences, parapsychology, cosmology, and UFO. And she has the UFO Association and ACO Association. So she's going to be on with us today, and then I'm Janet Carol Lessin. And everything is on aquarianradio.com. If you want to go check it out, there's a lot more information on everybody in the panel today. So we do a little quick sound check to make sure everybody's able to hear each other. So, Theresa, are you there?
Yeah.
TJ Morris. Hi,
can you hear me now?
Something about yourself. We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, hi, I'm Theresa.
About you.
Sure. My name is Theresa Jeanette Thurman Morris. I go by TJ Morris because it's shorter. In the military, I was called Terry because I had to wear the name Thurman to my maiden name. I wasn't married at the time. And with me being married to a man over 20 years, he's now passed, Thomas R. Morris, I was given the name Morris, so I go by Theresa J. Morris now. And Janet has been my BFF at least since 2008, I guess, because I've had no other. and I'm learning about her other good BFF, Barbara JEAN Lindsey, who helped Janet. I helped her for 7 years or 6 years develop the name Stargate to the Cosmos for promotion and event. And I wasn't able to attend because my daughter died, but Barbara was very nice to help her get this going the last year. So I'm really happy to get to know Barbara. So this is my chance, and Janet has arranged this official meeting. I don't think Barbara, have you and I interviewed each other yet? I don't remember.
I don't think so. I don't think we have. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, that'll be
all
fun.
Right, Janet.
We'll have to do a separate show where Barbara interviews Theresa, and then Theresa interviews Barbara, because we're all radio show hosts, and we're all psychics, and we're all experiencers, and so this is very exciting. So, Barbara, I know you're driving, so please don't ever wreck. But are you driving,
she's
or are
in
you
traffic.
the passenger? Are you driving, or are you the passenger?
I'm the passenger, so I'm in
good
good shape here. I can close my eyes and be okay.
Alrighty.
Yeah, just outside of Sacramento, California.
Wow. So you're driving home. And where were you that you're coming home?
I'm on my way to Plumas Lake. It's northwest of Sacramento, like on the way to Mount Shasta in a way. So it's not. I always think of it that way. And I just got. Yeah, and someone just sent me a little note. My daughter did. She goes that California is the second rated place for Sasquatch seers. She just sent that to me, and I didn't know that. So yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. So
what's the first rated
Northern California.
Sasquatch? What's the
I
first
don't know.
rated?
I don't know. I haven't had a chance to look that up because I've been in the car. So I was thinking, oh my God, I had no idea that it was second rated, because my whole family knows I'm into all of this sort of thing, and they found their peace with it, with me, and at first it was a little bit of an acclimation process for them, but now it's like, oh yeah, my grandma, my mom, and she's into all of this. Oh no, I'm sorry. It says California ranked as second best place to find Sasquatch, and that's on KS as in Sam BW.com. But I haven't been able to look it up. But yeah, I wonder what is first. Maybe some of our listeners know. Or
we'll find out. We'll find out. Well, I know that TJ Theresa has never heard your story, and I'd like to start with your story because we're going to do part of it sharing our stories, like about 15 minutes to 20 minutes of our story, and then round table, so maybe even shorter. I don't know. Let's just free flow with it. But let's start with your story because I know it's fascinating, and I'd like you to tell our listeners and TJ how you got into this. What was that? Yeah. You're dying in front of people. You died in front of people, dying to the light. Okay, take it away.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In 1989, I was a single mom, minding my own business pretty much, but I was looking for something different too, and I was kind of a seeker of truth at that time because I know that all the things, I had the house and the vacations and all the stuff and all the toys and all of that, but I just wasn't happy inside, so I started searching alternatives. And so I was at the time going to psychic school and learning how to develop my third eye and have a communication with the other side in a way, not so much the other side on a near-death way, but spirit guides, more like a spirit guide, starting to learn about all of that. And that day I was going to a all-women's prayer meeting, and as I drove up, it had been kind of a weird day all day, but as I drove up, I started having a lot of pain in my chest, and a lady ran up to me and had been told that someone would be needing an inhaler, and she knew it was me, and so she handed me her son's inhaler because I was having trouble breathing, and I'm an asthmatic, and so she gave me some hits off of his inhaler, and that seemed to help. So she ended up helping me walk inside the building where about 35 to 50 women were gathering. It was in the winter, December 4th, and I go in and my chest starts hurting like excruciatingly, and so much so that the pain was unbearable, and I pass out from the pain, and while I'm up and out of the body, okay, in this other place, I'm told later I was in a coma for 2.5 days, almost 3 days, but as my body, as my spirit was up above, my body, they put it up in a chair, and I full body channeled a being from Egypt, and a male voice, very loud. I had never channeled before. I didn't even know I could do that. I didn't know my mediumship abilities at all before that. And so the being came in, male, scared everyone, and said in a very loud voice, "I'm here to kill Barbara. She has information that cannot be given at this time," and he collapsed both my lungs. So they started to, they called the paramedics. They tried to keep me alive, and as my body was being taken care of and given the defibrillator to get me restarted, later, 5 years later, I had enough courage to talk to the on-call, just happened to be there, pulmonary specialist at the hospital, about my chart, and he said that he gave me the most electrical charges he had ever given anyone at that time, just to keep me alive, because he figured, what the heck, she is probably not going to make it anyway, doesn't look like she can get through this. And they had called my parents and everyone to come to the hospital. They said I probably wouldn't make it through the night. If I did, I would probably they weren't sure. They just knew I had lacked so much oxygen that I probably wouldn't. They weren't sure how much speech I would have, if I would be able to walk, if I would even remember who I was. They really painted a pretty gloom picture to my family, and they didn't really think I was going to make it through the night. I was actually given last rites by an on-call pastor as well. And so as my body's going through all of this and all the machines are trying to keep it busy, I have all these people praying for me, the whole psychic school, the whole network, they started a prayer line. I go out, and my body, the moment I leave the body, I did come back just for a second and was able to hook in right behind my eyes and scan the audience and see everyone so petrified. But the pain was so excruciating, I couldn't stay only but a few seconds. And then I popped back out, and I went into this amazing place of pure joy, pure bliss, pure love, the most love I had ever felt in my whole entire life. Being a mom, a fierce mom, I really can love. I'm a loving being naturally, and I'm in this undulating, very smooth, gentle, undulating water, warm water, dark water, and there's a light coming through from the top, and I'm in this stillness, this I am presence, this I'm with everything. It's with me. It's intelligent, and it's beyond the love is just beyond anything. It's like it just totally blew my mind that there could be that much love, and I'm a part of it. It's a part of me, and we're all together, and there's absolutely no separation. We're totally one. And in that moment of this blissed out nirvana love state, I looked down, and I don't know how long I was in it. It felt like forever and a minute at the same time. But then I looked down, and I realized that I don't have a body, but how do I exist? And in that split second of thinking that, I'm up then on a spaceship. And from there, from the moment on the spaceship, I'm sitting in kind of what now I look at like a jump seat. It's a circular room. There's no edges. Everything's soft, but very meticulously clean. The air is sweet. And then a guardian comes toward me. He says he's a guardian. I'm giving you the short version. And he's about, I'd say, about 8 feet tall. He comes. He has a big, white, beautiful robe on from head to floor with big square shoulders. He has no face, and he comes up to me. And as he comes up to me, he telepaths to me. And I had never really telepathed that I could remember before. And he tells me that I'm to call him the guardian, and everything's okay. And so, and am I okay? He just wanted to make sure and reassure me that everything's okay. Then from that point, he waves his hand, and he tells me his job is to interpret between myself and a group of beings that I would be meeting. And then a light appears out in the distance from me on the right corner, a big glass window, and behind the window are a group of beings all in the same matching robes. And I think to myself, what? Do they have like a cell for these white robed people? They all have the same clothes on, the same robes, but some are fat and some are skinny, and they have their own personalities. I can't see their faces, but they have a lot of enthusiasm when they're jumping and they're talking, and they're really together. They're separate, but they're really united as one. And then they agree on what they want to say, and then the one person then tells my guardian, and then my guardian tells me. And then from that point, I go to, I have a whole download with the Mother Earth. They show me the planet, and I'm with her. She's one with me, and she's alive. And I start having this epiphany, and I start crying because I never knew that the Earth was alive at that point. I had no idea, and that we need to take care of her, and that she's special, and that she's a gem in the galaxy. She's really extraordinary, and to really take care of her. And then from there, I go to, I shoot up out of the spaceship with my guardian, and we fly across these thousands and thousands of miles of forest land with no people, no buildings, just these trees. And then from that point, I go up to up the staircase and to a circular building with Greek columns. And inside the Greek columns, it's a large plateau floating in the middle of space. You can see the stars all around and darkness through that. It's floating there, and I'm floating in space on this Greek temple, and it's the same beings in the same robes, and not the same ones, but different ones, but in the same white robes with the big hoods that I can't see their faces. And they open the circle and they ask me to come in, and when I do, I link up with them, and there's all this love with them. And in the middle is a pedestal, and on top of the pedestal are these kind of white vapors, and in the vapors is a hologram of the earth. And they tell me that they're the watchers, and their job is to watch the earth, and that they've been doing it forever, and they will always do it, and that she is always protected, and part of that is their work, and I'm a part of that somehow. And so I'll tell you that later if you're interested. So then from that part, then just in a minute, the guardian shows up, and he says, he just looks at me, and I know we're going to somewhere else. So then at this point, we go into a galactic party where all these different beings from all these other planets are there, and they're playing kind of jazz music, and no one's eating anything, but they have these vials, different colors of looks like test tubes, different colors, and people, I don't actually see anyone drink them, but they offer one to me, and I can't drink it, and my guardian's looking at me, and I meet these different beings, and one looks kind of like a Jeeves, kind of a guy with white gloves, and afterwards I thought, oh, he must have been a robot, and then who's serving the people, and then the other one looks kind of like an admiral with a monocle, and then I see like a pink elephant-headed guy, bodied person, and all sorts of ones, and I just remembered it was important for me to remember the scene exactly, so I go through it in detail in my book. But
wow.
Then after that, then I go to spiral up into floating in these cloud-like space. And then I meet the goddesses, all these goddesses in these beautiful colors of lapis blue and turquoises and oranges, and they look like Waterhouse Victorian women with these beautiful hair. And they sing. They have this beautiful celestial singing in these very high tones that are just beyond anything I've ever heard, with such beauty and ecstatic bliss. And their job with me is all telepath, and is to teach me how to find my voice and find my tone, which I do, and I finally find it. And it's kind of funny how that happens, but so then from that point, then it's time for me to go, and I don't want to go. And I tell my guardian, no, I'm really liking this. I'm really enjoying this. And he says, well, Barbara, you have 3 children. And I go, oh my God, I have 3 children. That's right. Oh my, I didn't think at them at all, because you're 100% in the space. So
right.
The moment I think about my kids, it's time to go back. And then I go with my guardian, and we're floating up above, and I see my friend Cindy meditating on a chair, and there's this woman laying on the bed, and I go, what is Cindy doing in that hospital room, and who's that person hooked up to all those machines? And I look down, I go, oh my God, that's me down there. And I'm thinking, oh, I don't look so bad, maybe a little puffy, but I wasn't alarmed. It was like a matter of fact, oh, yes, that's my body, and I'm here. And so he said, it's time to go. And I said, okay. And he goes, wait, before I go down there, I'm going to need some help. I'm going to need some serious help down there. So can you give me something? Anything. I just need something. And he said, well, yes, Barbara, we'll give you the gift of white light. And at the time, I didn't know what that was, right? And so I threw a little fit. I go, you mean that's all you're going to give me when I just went through all of this, and can't you give me something more substantial? And he said no, and he thought that was really funny. But I didn't think it was so funny. And so then I start to leave, and he goes, no, come back. So I came back up, and he said, we'd like for you to have a mission for you if you'd like to take it. And I said, sure, without thinking. What is it? And he said, we'd like for you to be an ambassador. And I said, sure, I'll be an ambassador. And as I'm going back towards the body, I'm thinking, well, is that ambassador of the love? Is that ambassador for the arts? I wasn't sure what kind of ambassador he meant. So then I looked back and he was gone, and I haven't seen him since, and that was in 1989. And so as I'm floating back to the body, then I go into the body and I acclimate, my light body, all my light into every cell, every part of my body, so there's nothing left. I'm fully, totally in the body. And then I sit up, I take my first breath, and I say, I'm starving, I want some nachos. And it was kind of raspy, but my friends were like, they were pissed because I'm supposed to be dead. I'm not supposed to be doing any of this. And all the lights came on, all the doctors came in, and I was there for 10 days, and it started me on a quest to find out what the heck just happened to me, because ET, UFO were not in my reality before this experience. So it totally changed my life in every way, and all my psychic abilities turned on 100%.
Wow.
So, that's my story. It's been the same story. When I say it, it's like it happened yesterday, and that's like 30 years now.
Yeah, it's like permanently in your psyche, in your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Well, TJ, do you have any feedback or comments? And I would suggest that you do one of your near-death experiences, and then I'll do mine. Go ahead, TJ, your turn.
Oh, no, that was beautiful. That took me on quite a adventure there. When you were saying things, yes, I've died, but mine's not as glamorous as that. I have different memories depending on which time we talk about. But the beauty that I would like to share is you had some familiar things that are in my psyche, in my head, and which I found familiar. One was when I went on my quest, having placenta previa, and my daughter died first, and then I did. But they took the baby, but Janet's heard this a million times, and I could go into all the details, but the main thing I'd like to say is what's familiar with hers, Janet, is when I started in Hawaii, I hear a bunch of noise. Is that?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm in the car. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, that's
on my end. I'm sorry.
Well, there's nothing you can do about that.
I will mute. I will mute right now. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, it was distracting my brain, which normally it doesn't, but I think because I was going inside my brain, Barbara. I'm sure you can relate, right? I was trying to find the knowledge. All right, but just really quickly, without all the details of one of my deaths, I've got several, but Janet, I just wanted to mention that the place she talks about, I imagine many of us have seen something similar with like a floating Greek Parthenon or something. There's beautiful paintings about that. So that comes from somewhere, folks, because there's beautiful artist renditions. But I knew exactly what she was talking about because that knowing of that place in space I've seen mainly when I was on my spiritual quest in Hawaii. But I also recognize that as one of my homes because it's the most beautiful. We had like Pegasus horses, and I wish I had all my information on Lost in Kentucky because she would probably go, oh, that's it, because I just think, well, I'm going to have to look in my Ascension book, which I'm going to do right now. This is from my quest in Hawaii, my death experiences. But this is a place in paradise where the gods were, or where I came from, in the Garden of Hesperides. And it had golden apples there. But these women, no, I don't have it. Darn it. I was hoping I did. The reason is I haven't thought about that place since 30, 40 years ago. But it should be a place of peace for me. And I was hoping that I had a picture because I used to have a picture. Unfortunately, it didn't make it. That's so sad. But what she was speaking about, I had a father there, and most of them were women. They were like the goddesses. And it's what I think of the psychic oracles of this place in space or in my mind or in the death experience, but it's a reality if you can see it and feel it and know it, even if you're in your body or not. But I wasn't in this 3D body, but I have a reality that lived there, and I had two sisters, and I wrote this all up, and I doubt Dr. Sturgis, a therapist, psychologist, she got 12 years, I believe, PhD in psychology, but Dr. Laura Sturgis in Hawaii. But I gave her a copy, and Cynthia Chu, her associate that lived with her and helped her in business, it was Dr. Laura Sturgis, just to validate that I had a story about the three goddesses and it was about the Garden of Hesperides, what I called it, and there was a golden apple, and we were playing ball with it or throwing it around, and it went off the side of what she's talking about in space. And the Father God, whomever that was, in my mind I use Zeus, but that's, because you always have to find some word or analogy for that. But when I threw it over, I didn't throw it over. We were throwing it back and forth, and I really don't remember which one of us, so I don't know that blame is a part of it. But because it went over, it was time for us to leave. Mm-hmm. So the three of us got to go to Earth, and we didn't really want to. I remember the ESP voice coming into our heads, or at least mine. We talked about this later, but the fact was it was time for us to learn of our skills, and it's a feeling of not wanting to leave there because you're perfectly happy there. It's probably as close to heaven as we can imagine. And that place was always my place of peace to go back to. And I had a literal picture I found one time on believe it or not, on a school thing. You put 8.5 by 11 sheets for school. And I saw it one day in Hawaii and went, that's it. And it was a beautiful picture of this place in space, like Greek columns, like the Parthenon, or what picture of Greece or whatever, floating on this beautiful piece of land or something in the sky, or in the heaven, and it's absolutely beautiful. And women wore these white Grecian, I don't know if you'd say like beautiful things or how we picture goddesses, but that memory is so involved in my psyche and my soul, and I don't know where else to put it, but it's a place in space.
So this is when you died, when you gave birth.
This is a memory.
This is where you.
Well, I had to think of it. I came up with this, while I was in Hawaii on my spiritual quest. But, I'd already died, but this is a reality in my head. But when she was talking about it, I knew exactly, I went there. And so it's a reality. But I can't explain it because since I do out of body, and I've died several times, and then I'm a psychic and bilocator, precog, but I always use that. It's a part of me, Janet, so I don't know how one might describe a memory of that. I guess it's a place.
How do you access it? Do you do it during meditation or in your dream world?
No, it's just part of me. It's like it's in my DNA or something. This is something we can all talk about because I really believe that those of us that have a life and death, we're born, we live, we die, but some of us, and there's many people that will argue with us about an out-of-body experience and a near-death experience, and we choose to take the scientific approach, meaning that it can be proven over and over again by our peers, which I guess they're gathering data, but mostly it's really not a proven science because we really don't understand the brain and all that. But most of us, at least in the paranormal, psychic, metaphysical, spiritual science world, will say out of body and near death. And since we come back, like Barbara did, and then like I have, on all the memories I've had, this is an ingrained place. But Janet, I wasn't able to access it until I was on my spiritual quest in Hawaii. And it just came to be a reality. And I guess I don't know how it came to be that I got that vision, but it's a place in space. And like I said, there's been beautiful cards and I'd see people, once I'd been there, it was on my spiritual quest. So it's like past life regression, possibly, Janet. You know how therapists will take you back. It was one of those really deep searches I did. And you remember that on my birthday they took me back to the pyramids, but these are things that become a part of you, and they're so deep and ingrained. Now, maybe my mind relates it to when I died with Gigi, you know, and we were hooked up. I'll just use that one because it's one.
Yeah, what happened in the Gigi one? Yeah.
Well, when I was 23,
you and Gigi died. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had been going to teach baton at Houston Parks and Recreation. It was rainy one day, and I fell on my seat one day going in to teach little girls twirling batons. And so we figured that must be because they asked me to go back and research because it knocked me. Anyway, I got it. I know it hurt me, and I was worried about the baby because I was pregnant, but I didn't. I looked for blood. You know, what do you do when you're a mother pregnant and you fall? It was just a slippery sidewalk and going into a recreation center, and I was by myself, and I was late getting there, so I was hurrying to get there. I think I had to wait for a babysitter for my children rather than bring them with me after school. But I slept, and so we think that's what happened when I tore a leak in my placenta on the side of my stomach. But I must have started a slow leak, and that was about 4:35 in the afternoon. But by about 12 hours later, I lost a big, huge part of my placenta. A big red piece, looks sort of like a liver, I guess, a calf liver or something. But it fell into the commode that morning, and so I called my mother, and she was like, "Oh my God, you're having a miscarriage, you're losing baby, or something, or you've had something." So, she, "Are you in any pain?" I was like, "No, but I feel very euphoric." So I was getting lightheaded, and she said, "I'll be right over." So she was only about 6 miles away from where I was living at the time, and she came and got me, and I had 3 other little girls, so she had woke up my younger sister to come over and stay with them. I think, I don't remember to tell you the truth, but somehow I had 3 daughters, or they took them back. Anyway, it was just me and Mother, so maybe Charlie, the stepfather came and got the children, but the children were taken care of because of 3 children. So I go to the hospital, and they hooked me and the baby, and they shave and prep because I was having natural childbirth, and put the monitor off of the, you know, it was hanging on the wall, and it was a small room where they have mothers go. It depends on the hospital. This was in Houston at Southwest Memorial, I believe, Hospital. Oh, no, it was Sharpstown Hospital. Gosh, I almost forgot. Sharpstown Hospital. Interesting. I have to go back there to see it. But so I'm in this little room, and they hook, you know, shave prep, 2 nurses. My mother's sitting in a corner chair. It's a small, maybe not 8 by 10, maybe 8 by 10. It was a small room with enough for a hospital, some little equipment. It was down the hall from the ER, or where they were getting surgery, or wherever you have babies, okay, where you put the legs in the stirrup and the lights are overhead. So I looked up. I was already euphoric, so I'm not in any pain, but I was wondering, and they did for women that have had babies now, they go up there and search and see how your cervix is dilated, and I was only like 4.5 or something, and so that we thought it was going to be a while, but they'd gone out, and it had been a little while, but I was really losing touch with reality. It's like if you've ever get close to real hungry, or you're weak, or you get real weak, or you're going to pass out, so you have to sit down, or it's a really, no pain, but it's a lightheaded feeling. But then I looked at the monitor, and I'd been watching the monitor because what else are you going to do when you're laying there waiting to have a baby? So I was just watching the baby's monitor. And I had one too, but it must have been behind my head. But the one I could see, my mother was in a chair, and it was over her head, so I was fixated on that. But it stopped beating, you know, beat, you know how baby's heart. So I was like, oh, my God. I said, Mom, and I could barely talk, did the baby's heart stop? And she looked, and, you know, she knew what it looked like. She went, and then, oh, my God. And so I said, well, I don't think I see anything after that. Then she went and pulled up the side door where the nurses were going in and out. Then there was one right next to my head on the hallway going into surgery. So there was two doors, a back door for the nurses and a front door. It just happened to be set up that way. And she opened their door and yelled at them, and they came in and looked, and then they listened to the baby through, the stethoscope on my stomach. They couldn't hear a heartbeat. So Mother screamed and grabbed somebody that was mopping the floor at the door by my head and dragged him in, and yelling and screaming, and threw whoever walked by in there to help her. Help my child, help my child, just help my. And then fortunately, the doctor had been late because, they call him at home. They're not in at the hospital, but he had to come birth my baby 6:45, something like that in the morning. And he fortunately, I remember looking right over, I was just about out of my body then, but I looked over at the door over my shoulder, which would be to the left, because my head was towards the hallway going to surgery. So I looked over, and he was falling over the guy with a mop bucket, literally back then in the 60s, literally a mop bucket, a silver mop bucket with an old-timey mop, not like the big ones. It wasn't commercial-like. And
right.
So he stumbled over him and came right up to me on this laying old wood with blue aqua color mat with a piece of paper over it, laying there. And I said, am I going to die? And he looked me in my eyes and said, not if I can help it. But I already knew I was glossy-eyed because I was thinking back. So somehow they transferred me and pulled me out, and I remember seeing the lights overhead, and it was one or two. It wasn't long and it wasn't short. It's just enough to realize I was staying in my body, because I remember focusing on those lights, and then the two doors open and this cold rush hits me. But then they stop me, and I'm still sort of leaning my head over to the left, and somebody at the head that was pushing me on the gurney, and the doctor went and got prepped when we went through the door, so he disappeared, but took my head and moved it forward, because the guy on my right side said, you've got to sign this paperwork. And he was all worried about this clipboard and all this paperwork. And I said, I can barely get out. I can't. So they put my arm on a stiff board so I could sign this friggin' paperwork. And now I'm leaving my body, right? They hadn't even,
oh my God.
And I couldn't make my hand work. So to sign the paperwork. And I told them, I barely could talk. I was leaving. I was like, I can't, but they took my hand and scribbled something, but I looked at it, and it was just a big blurby mess of scribble. But I guess he said, that'll do. So he's left. And then they took me around the anesthesiologist, which was already there. So I don't know how he got there, if he just happened to be ER. They called him down within 5 minutes or something, but there was a guy there. I think they wore a powder green back then. And but I remember, so I must have been put on that table, which I don't remember now, but I'm guessing because it's been so long ago. Because now I'm seeing the white light in the stirrups. I remember putting my feet up, but I couldn't do it. So there was at least there was two guys, and then I could see two nurses, and they put me there and put my legs in the stirrup, and then here comes the doctor with his hands up. And he looked over, and they'd already, where my hand was on that board, they had that blood pressure cuff on my right arm. Mm-hmm. So they took it, and this is when the doctor said, we're ready to go ahead and give her. And he said, doctor, we can't. I can't. I think he said, however they say it professionally, and I should know as a corpsman, but it's been years since I worked in a ER too. So he said, it's 60 over 40. We can't give her anything. And he said, well, we have to, because I'm going in. And he said, we can't. And so he said, that's why. And he said, well, we're going to lose her anyway. I've got to save the baby, or something like that. Or he may have asked me. For some reason, I don't remember anymore. I remember save the baby. So maybe he said which or something. I can't remember anymore. I just know he was saving the baby, so I must have said save the baby. And then without any anesthesia or anything, and I was Lamaze technique, my mother, the first three I had naturally. So this one was going to be natural. We didn't believe in episiotomy, or what they call it, spinal. We don't believe in that. Right. So in taking any for pain. So anyway, so he cuts my stomach open, and I was ready for it. But remember, I'm half in body and I'm half out, so I expected to feel it, and I didn't. And then I feel a rubbery blah, 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 blah. I'm watching the baby come out, and that's when I went over my head. So now I'm out of body. My vision has, at first it's like it gets glossy and I sort of sunk down, and then you come out the top. And then I was up overhead watching, and the baby came out blue. They pulled her out, and her butt, it was like a blubber feeling. It's a real, like feeling. And the baby's, they pulled her out by the butt, so she was going to be inverted, I think. And then she had the umbilical cord around her neck, and she was blue. And so they cut it, and I'm overhead watching them do that. But at the time he cut me, a nurse screamed or something, because I don't know if she'd never seen it, but I remember, it's part of me now, the nurse screaming. And I remember thinking, that's odd if she's a nurse. I mean, it's weird how your brain works, but I remember thinking it's odd that she screamed, because she shook me, because I was out of my body already. I was like, oh, because I was over my head, and she screamed. It's really, wow, God, what the heck? And so I tried to look at her, but she wasn't the one holding the baby. It was the one standing next to her. So the baby's all covered in this white yucky stuff, and then she takes her over, and she's not breathing, so they have to aspirate her and all that. And I'm watching all this overhead now, but it's like it hasn't really sunk in that I'm not in my body, but I can tell you now from the memories, because the way it's ingrained in my whatever's left of the memory there. But I was watching them clean her and take her, clean her off and aspirate her and get her where, and I remember in my mind, or with ESP or whatever you want to call it, because you're not in your body, so what is it's not in your mind. So, but whatever I am when I'm out of body, my spirit going, breathe, breathe. So I was saying, breathe, breathe, and she started breathing, and I felt this. You can still feel your emotions out of body, of course. I don't know why, but you can. So the emotions stay with you. So I was watching them, and she went ahead and put the baby's. She put a needle to her little heel and punched it and got a drop of blood. So I watched her do that. Now I don't know how long this takes. It wasn't very long, because it happens real quick. Just baby over to the side, wiped her, but was trying to get her heart, and it's all done really, really quick. But you remember, because it like time slowed down, and I watched her get the blood, and then I watched her take a black ink pad thing and put her foot on it, and she's holding this little thing, and she puts her foot and makes a print on the paper, and then I'm still watching this, but I don't realize I'm out of body yet. But then I see the clock, when I saw the clock, that's when I shot up. I saw the light pass in the room. I was like, oh, because I'm up now. For some reason, after I look at the clock, everything was in slow motion, and it's one of those big white clocks, like in an operating room, the big ones you see just about everywhere.
Right.
So you can And then when I hit the light, for some reason, that's when I know. Now I'm like, oh, I'm out of body. So at that time, I look down and see myself, and then that's when I start the journey past the light of the room, and then I go up through the building and the darkness stars, and I get on this like traveling tube or something, but it all I can tell people is like an escalator, and I don't remember why I had to record it like that, but I think it was for some reason I needed to remember the it's not straight up, it was escalator. So shooting, it feels like you're leaving a tail, but I went into something, but I didn't think that. I do now, but back then I was just somewhere, and I don't remember feeling the air, but I do remember going up past the earth and the clouds or whatever, clouds and then the stars. The reason I remember the stars is that's one of the first thoughts I had was, wow, look at all those stars. And then that's when all the memories started coming. I guess the Akashic field that we psychics use, but it was all this data, all this thoughts, these memories, these knowledge was going, and it felt like that, but I couldn't hear it, but I could see it. It was like coming into my head, but what head, right? You don't have a head into your reality, but it feels like a body, And I knew where it was.
Form. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your spiritual
you're in
form.
spirit form.
So,
it
feels
go
like
ahead.
your head. All right, so then I'm going up, and I keep traveling, and I leave this world and this, planet and the stars going by. So I just accept, okay, well, this is going to be an interesting journey. I just remember thinking something like, wow, because I knew I was going. You literally know you're traveling, okay? I can't explain how, but you know. And so I'm approaching this light. It's a really, really bright, bright light. And then whatever I am kicks in, and I'm like, I was like, what did I say? I said something. And I said something. I heard two people. First of all, I'm going to light, but I hear the voices talking. And I really, now remember, I've seen the stars, so I know I'm going somewhere, right? You haven't really sunk in. Okay, solid body, traveling, stars, all this data comes into my head. I know all this stuff. And I'm going towards this light, this really bright golden light. And then I hear two voices talking. I don't know if it's male and female. I want to say it is, but you don't know, generic voices talking. And I say, wait, I don't know how now. I've lost that. But I remember saying, what will happen to my children? And so the escalator stopped. It just went zzz. And so then I thought, I waited, and I remember them saying, and I usually leave this part out, but all the children will be your children. And I said, I don't care, I want to go back. And they said, if you go back, you will experience more pain than you've ever experienced on earth. And I thought for a minute, because I remember being blank-minded, but then it's like shaking off, and I don't care, I want to go back. But the part of all, and I don't know why sometimes I'm in denial or leave that out of my story. I guess because I don't tell it, but I've told it more than 7 years with Janet than ever. But it was important, and so I didn't get to see my family or the Golden Gates or the Pearly Gates or nothing like that. So maybe why that memory that Barbara's talking about became my home, or maybe that was what was on the other side. I don't know. I just know that was a vision I had in my vision quest when I came back to Earth. Because after I heard those voices, and I was sitting there, which seemed like 1,000 years, but it was only for a second maybe, because and then I don't care. I'm negotiating what will happen to my children? That's what I said. What will happen to my children? That's what I said. And because I thought that, and because I could hear them talking, it shook me into some kind of reality or whatever that is that you are. So what will happen to my children? And that's when they said, you'll experience more pain than you're experiencing. Trying to tell me you don't want to go back. But I said, I don't. And then they said, somehow, I don't know which was first or second, but I do remember those two things. What will happen to my children? And they said, all the children will have to be your children. So that's like negotiating the whole world peace. We are all one or something. But I got the big aha on it, that we are all one. Everything's, I got that you get that. Oh, it's all the same. We're all responsible for everything. I got that feeling. Right. So that I know that came over me because I didn't care, but I got the big aha or the big awakening. And I didn't care. I wanted to come back. So I felt like they were negotiating something because I was just sitting still. And then all of a sudden, and I always do that in my mind because it felt that way, but there was no sound that way because these were thoughts in my head, or whatever that, your spiritual essence. So, because I'm trying to be honest, folks, because I'm feeling it and I know what I want to say. And I've said it maybe 5 times ever in my entire life, but I don't think I've even written that in a book. But anyway, so I come back down. I'll come back down and come through you're coming really fast. And I remember the light thing, and then shook, and I hit my body. And they said I'd come off the gurney 12 inches. Unbelievable, because I did it again.
Wow.
But, I don't know if they were hitting me with paddles or what. All I know is I came back into my body, and I stayed out. I was back, and the pain was horrendous coming back in. It's great leaving. You don't have any feeling. You're in euphoric state, right? Wow, this is wonderful. Wow. But for some reason, I guess because I didn't have any drugs in me, I'm guessing, nothing hooked up, get it? So there was nothing flowing in me. They assumed I was. So they just thought I was, a piece of meat, I guess. Fortunately, they left me there. And there was nobody around as far as I remember because I felt all alone, cold, and black. So I guess that's when you go unconscious or something because they said I didn't wake up for like 6 weeks. And I was on life support. And my mother, I didn't bond with the baby. And they didn't have enough blood. I'd lost all the blood in my body. And I said, well, what do you mean all of it? They said, well, it only holds maybe 8, and you'd lost 6.5, 7. We mean all of it. And they said we used all we had, O positive, which is thank God you were normal. It's a one we normally have a lot of, but we still ran out. So my stepfather had O positive, and he had to give like 2 pints or something. It was more than they normally take just to save my life to get enough in. And I don't know why I lost so much blood. I don't remember how I lost that much blood. But they assured me I lost all. I remember a nurse when I came back.
That's what happens with placenta previa. You bleed out, and normally you go into organ failure. But so somehow they you lived because you chose to live.
I guess because I got to come back down. But the thing is, I don't remember that part. I don't remember anything between the darkness and my mother. When I finally wake up, I'm in an ICU hooked up to everything you can imagine. And we were alone, and I couldn't breathe. And she was trying to calm me down. I guess I had one of those tubes down me, life support.
Yeah.
But, I was scared to death, so they had to put me back under. And every time I'd come out, I'd get scared. And I guess I don't know how old Gigi was, maybe 2.5 months by the time I got out of the hospital. I had to learn to breathe before they could take me. They'd have to pull you off of that life support. And then it was I'll never forget, the pain was so horrendous losing my lungs again because, oh my God. And I would beg them, please. I would be in tears. I would hear them because I was semi-conscious. They must have put me on something, or either my body just kept me out. But I was out of it. But when I'd come around, I'd be semi-conscious. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't move my body, but I could hear every word they said. And I remember getting aggravated at people coming and going and talking about me like I wasn't there. And so some part of me was conscious going, I'm right here, Mom. Can't you hear me, or can't you see me? But I couldn't open my eyes, but I could still see. But apparently I couldn't see. So that's when I learned about my skills, really, literally, that you can see even though your eyes are closed and your body's laying there. But then finally one day I got brave enough to barely open my eyes because they had taken me off of life support but still had me on oxygen, and I wasn't getting enough, and the pain was so severe it woke me up. And so I remember grabbing the mask and breathing as hard as I could, trying to get the air. And I guess that mothers yelled and screamed for the nurse, and they came and turned it up because I felt like I was suffocating. So it must have been when they had pulled it out and just put me on, I guess, my vitals. I don't know all the details. Even though I've been a corpsman, I did learn later in the Navy how to take care of people. But that's a pretty painful thing to come off of that and go back on regular care. Then finally get to leave, and I didn't know my baby. I didn't meet Gigi until after I'd been home a week and a half because my mother and my grandmother were taking care of her and the children, and I was laying on the couch. They made me a bed on the couch, so I don't think they could get me in the room, or I don't know why I wasn't sleeping in my own bed, but maybe I wanted to and they didn't fight with me, or maybe it was so they could watch me while they took care of the children, but I slept in the living room on the couch. But I remember one day Mother finally said, well, do you feel well enough to go see the baby? And I said, what baby? And she's like, you don't remember you had a baby? But remember, I'd been out of it for months. And so they finally I try to use my legs for the first time, and they're trying to get me up, and they called the doctors. They said, no, that's normal. She hadn't been able to walk 6 weeks. So she's going to have physical therapy or something like that. And I was like, what? So she's trying. But anyway, they were able to, my grandmother and mother on each side of me, taking my arm and taking me around the couch to I guess it was my bedroom with a crib in it. And I saw her for the first time, and she looked so cute, but they'd taken her tail off. Mother said she was born with a tail, and they cut it off. And she said, it's okay. But they didn't want to tell me. And my husband came home, and I remember seeing him for the first time ever, like, in years, and he was sitting in the door looking at me, and he was smiling, and he got tears in his eyes, I guess because I was finally up, sort of. My legs were limber like little sticks. I was real skinny then, about 130. I'm like 230 now. But, I was real little. So I looked at the baby, and I wanted to see her. So they helped take the little diaper off and everything. She's a girl, and she's cute. She had pitch black hair, long, 2 or 3 inches long, just like I had when I was born. And Mom said, oh, she looks just like you did, and she's cute and everything. And I said, why she got that bandage on her? They said, honey, they had to take her tail off. And I was like, tail? What's she like? I was like, a tail. But apparently she had a 2 or 3 inch tail that's a throwback.
Wow.
And my sister Brenda had the same thing, and Mother had the same thing. I didn't. And I guess all the other kids didn't, but I thought,
you are an ET.
So
you are an ET.
It was really weird. So anyway, that's the story. Yeah, you tell yours.
Yeah, I want to pause right here and give Barbara a chance to give you feedback or ask questions. Barbara, are you still with us?
Yeah, I am. It's just an amazing story, and to go through that, TJ, wow, and and you're telling it like I didn't feel it, all the pain and suffering that you went through, but to go out to that place, that floating goddess palace, in the stars, and I can feel it. I can relate to it while you're telling your story too, and I loved hearing that. It helps, helps me to hear your story.
Well, I was glad to hear yours because I've never heard anybody else describe what's in my, self, soul, that place you live, where your soul lives. But that's my place of peace. But I never heard anybody else describe it. I've seen pictures. Have you ever seen the pictures, some artist rendition of that?
Yeah, I had at Stargate to the Cosmos, I had a lady come up after hearing my story, and she brought me a photo. She showed me in her phone. In fact, she's going to gift it to me. Her name's Dawn Nicholson. I had her on my show later. But it's she, out of everything I talked about, that's what she related to the most was the goddess place, the place where all the goddesses were in the floating palace. But it was the one where I met the Watchers. That was her place. But each of them were kind of, the one with the floating was where the Watchers were, and she it just hit something in her and opened her up.
Well, I've always believed in the Watchers, and I guess I know they exist, but I lived there, so maybe they were what I called my family. But I just told that one story because that one story is the one I remember the most about the Garden of Hesperides is what I called it. But
it's beautiful.
That's the
I love
story.
the name of it.
But I don't remember any. I don't have any memory inside the building. I mean, it's supposed. You hear of these places, and you hear Sylvia Brown used to talk about the Hall of Records and going to different buildings like that. But I didn't know that until only when my daughter had been sick with leukemia for the last 2 years, and I'd go to a bookstore to get books to read while I had to sit with her for hours on end when she'd have her dialysis done, right? So one of Sylvia Brown's talked about, I've got it over here somewhere, but I'll have to find it. But they're very peaceful talking about these places, but I had never even considered that it was real other than it is to me, but it's where I guess my spirit lives. It's my home or some part of me. So I just know that it's, a vision in my head, but you relate to them inside the building. Can you remember, you said, did you go inside the building?
No, there's 2 different places. One was when I met the Watchers inside the building. There was no top to it, though. It was round columns, and then up in the sky was all the stars, and around was all the stars. But I remember going up the steps, and they were like alabaster stairs, and it was like marble on, like, you were walking. I was barefoot, even though my whole thing, I never got to see a body ever, but I could feel.
So you didn't
my
see your feet? I
around.
didn't see my feet. Okay,
yeah,
good. I'm glad you said.
Yeah, I never saw any part of my body at all.
Me either.
None of it.
But you feel it. You know it's there.
Yes, but
you're using
feel
it.
Yeah.
It's a feeling,
definitely.
but yeah, because somebody said, "Well, did you see your feet?" I'm like, "No." So then they don't believe you. I'm like, I know that. You do know you've got a
truth, right? You just tell your story. But the other people commented that they loved my smile. So they were able to see me, but I wasn't able to see me.
Ah, okay. Well, so whatever we are, they can see you.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that's a clue. At least I got to hear that. And, you know, I'm glad you said, I never saw my feet, and that's aggravated people. They're like, well, didn't you look down and see your feet? I said, no, and I didn't see a silver cord hanging off of me either. So,
no, I didn't see anything
I'm
like
sorry.
that. I saw no. I didn't see a white tunnel or no cords, none of that, you know.
Yeah. So everybody's to each his own, and, you know, there's similarities. And I believe that the stories we're hearing now, which they didn't have, because I remember my grandmother, my husband's grandmother, she's dead now, Miss Thomas, wanted me to write a book then in the 70s. Oh, she lived up in Little Rock and was one of those ladies that knew more open. She was Presbyterian, but she just believed in all that. But someday, honey, you're going to write a book. I was like, yeah, right. Of course, I wound up being an author.
There you go.
When I was in the third grade, I remember writing a book and saying I was going to be an author, and I was very proud of that. And it was in my baby book. My mother kept, of course, that's back in Kentucky, which is probably thrown away. You know, all these memories I have, at least I kept some of them. I miss that, but I guess we're here now being authors and psychics and intuitive, and I do think I felt my gifts when I was out of body. And I learned to use them when I was younger. I knew I had them, but, you know, when I was 2, Janet's helping me write a book on a linear time.
Yeah, wonderful.
Do you have a linear timeline book, Barbara? A biography, autobiography?
I do. That's kind of my book. That's what it tells the story of just the story itself, the near-death experience. And I'm writing that book right now, and that's of everything that happened afterwards, you know. And
good. You're writing a new book.
And some of the stories before that I had never related to, too. Yeah. It starts, you know.
Yeah, I'm doing a timeline, too.
Sense. Yeah.
So all three of us are at the same time. Wow. Go ahead, Janet. It's your turn.
Yeah, Janet, come on.
I just want to share mine. First of all, I didn't worry about having a body or not having a body. I was just there. I was just totally in the presence. I had a violent exit. I was orally raped, and I'm not going to go into that story, but a perpetrator got a hold of me and grabbed me and orally raped me, and I choked to death, and I went out of my body. And but I immediately found myself with my guides, and it was a whole council. And so I was able to kind of bilocate. I was in the room watching the efforts for them to revive me. There were 2 adult men and my mother, and they were just trying to figure it out. This was 1958. I don't think a lot of people knew CPR back then. So I was dead for about 45 minutes. And at one point they said, we have to call the police. And they were going to turn in the fellow who had done the deed. Meanwhile, I'm up there simultaneously talking to my counsel, and we were deciding what I would do. And so they showed me several different timelines where if I stayed there, you know, like you said, what will happen to my children? If I stayed there, these different alternative timelines would unfold to for various people in my family. And so in one timeline, my dad got angry and killed the guy who killed his daughter. In another timeline, my mother went crazy and ended up in an insane asylum. Another timeline, my older brother couldn't reconcile what happened to his baby sister, so he killed himself. And another one, my sister couldn't reconcile what happened to her baby sister, so she killed herself. So it was all these horrendous outcomes if I stayed dead. And actually a correlation with me staying dead was that the whole planet would blow up. And I had been shown the timelines, 24 timelines when I was on a spaceship, so it was like the worst scenario. The whole planet blows up if I stay dead. I couldn't understand the connection. But the feeling was pure love. I don't want to go back. Why would I want to go back to that? It's like swimming in love. It's the most intense feeling of love you can ever. I don't think your body could hold that much love. It was like being out of body in love. You know, feel much more love than I ever could in body, right? It's like the body is limited. So I made the decision. I said, oh, I can't do that to the world and to these people. I will go back. And as soon as I made that decision, my body had been tossed in the corner like a rag doll. They were just so distraught, and they were fighting with each other about, you know, these three people about what to do, and they had tried to revive me. And so I just popped into my body, and there was so much energy. I stood up, and I was smiling, and I threw my hands up, and I said, hi. And the three of them, they were just about to leave the room, go downstairs and call the police. And they turned around, and they all three screamed, and they ran out of the room. And so I said, cool, look what I did to the adults. I thought it was kind of funny. I was still a little high from being surrounded by love. I didn't remember anything negative. I crawled. It happened in my bedroom, so I crawled over to my bed on the other side of the room, and then I went to sleep. And I forgot about it for years until I was doing psychotherapy, and then it came back and just hit me like a brick because I had trauma from the whole thing, of course, trauma. So anyway, that was mine. But you know, when I was out, I didn't have any thoughts about where's my body, no body. It was very natural. Where I went was very natural. It was a natural. I remembered it was like a natural state of being, and it was home. It's where we go in between. So anyway, that's what I was going through. All right. Wow, and that took the whole first hour. So any questions, feedback, comments for anybody who shared the story between the three of us? Barbara Jean, do you have any? And then we'll go on to something else.
I was just thinking when you're telling your story, then when you're outside the body, it's like you're more present there than in the body. That was my experience.
Oh, yeah. You're totally connected to everybody and everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's all familiar. But I know that place you're talking about with the columns, and there's a very famous painting where there's a lady sleeping on the stairs, and this, I think it's a little boy leans over her, and I'm trying to find that painting.
Probably a Maxfield Parrish, right?
Yes, that's Maxfield Parrish.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting because Parrish is your what are your married name, right? Parrish. TJ. TJ, you there? TJ. We lost TJ.
Uh-oh.
Let me go back to the board and see if she dropped off. She did. I'll call her back. All right. Where did TJ go? Okay. Maybe her phone went dead. Anyway, let me do this real quick. We're still broadcasting. I got to pull her number. So tell us.
Okay.
Oh, here she is. Here she is. Okay, here we go. Hey, TJ.
Hi. I'm sorry.
How long were you gone?
Not very. It just happened. I don't know. I got booted off somehow. Sitting here being still. I'm not now. Now I'm moving everything around. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, but it just got kicked off. All of a sudden, it went, dead. I was like, wow. So I looked real quick, and all these Facebook things were on. I'm trying to get rid of them to find a screen. So maybe
I'm going to do a round where we talk about. Okay, go ahead. You say something, and then I'll make a suggestion.
No, I was just going to tell you that. I was just going to tell you that earlier today I got knocked off with Brett Luter, and it was the winter alert knocked me off. So, weather alert. We had a real bad thing come in. So I don't know. I guess the weather alert, it's something on my phone. It can knock you offline, I guess. But I didn't see it this time, but I wasn't looking. I just heard, and then I didn't. I was like, what happened? So I apologize. My bad.
Wow. That's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're done with the near-death experiences, and I want to suggest for the next round that we share what it's like, so you're now more psychic. And that's what happens a lot of times. When you die, you become more psychic. And that's part of what they do in the when they do the intentional, who are they? The dark forces try to split you, create altars, and one of the side effects of dying and coming back is that you become more psychic. So let's start with Barbara again. So you're now more psychic. Tell us about being psychic. What does that mean? What are some of the things that have happened? And let's try to do about 15 minutes apiece because we're going to run out the second clock. Okay. Over to you, Barbara.
Okay. Yeah, what happened to me after I came back was that I could read everybody's mind, and it was out of control. My psychic ability turned on 100%. So I read everybody, everywhere. I read the cheese. I read everything. It just came without warning. It was just there. And so I just had to learn how to adapt to that. And that took me at least a year, maybe 2, maybe even up to 3, in a way to learn how to adapt to living an intuitive life, a life where, that you do see all of these things. And I had to learn how to be able to turn it off. And now, at 30 years later, I can turn it on and off like a faucet, so it's not a problem. But going through all of that was pretty painful in some ways. And it was pretty scary because even though I was attending a psychic school at the time, I didn't really have anyone able to help me. And so I did go to a school where I could learn about mediumship. And so what really helped me the most was learning how to have a relationship between myself and my body, and myself, my body, and the earth, and other people, and then myself, my body, the earth, the people, and then the cosmos. And I kind of went backwards in a way. I just recently started working with the fact that maybe it wasn't a coincidence that I had that experience on a spaceship. There's millions of different ways it could have went, so why to a spaceship, right? And so I've been working that. So I looked at it psychically. Hey, where you have the ability to look at everybody else but yourself, sometimes. And so I looked at that and saw that that's my family. That is a real part of my family, and it's something that I couldn't handle the truth at the time. Actually, I just couldn't. And then I had to acclimate to the truth of really who I am and what I'm about. And that psychic part of me is a real part of me. For a long time, in order to learn about it, I had to be 100% with it. Now that I've matured, I know it's just an aspect of me, and I don't have to wear it. I can take it on and take it off, at will. I tell you, it took me a long time to figure that out and how to work with it. So how I learned about being a psychic and what psychic's about is doing the thousands and thousands and thousands of readings. And for a while, I look back and say, why did I do that with my life? Why? I was an interior designer at the time. I had a thriving business. Why didn't I stay with that instead of going into this more esoteric field about UFOs and ETs and finding out all about that? instead of just having quote unquote normal life. You know, I traded my whole normal life into this whole esoteric, you know, wild ride, you know, all over the world, going to sacred spots and meeting all these people and having, I'm sure all of it. Any experience, finding out how to deal with it, how to work with it, and love myself, enjoy, you know, being here too. So it's been a wild ride, and I wouldn't have had it any other different way. And my 3 children went on this ride with me about exploring all psychic abilities and all the other and all the. I'm a sensitive and I'm a psychic, and you know, I accepted it. It took me a while to find out what that was and what it was, and so I look back. I don't have any regrets, and that makes me feel at peace now. I can finally, you know, talk about. I'm talking at a near-death experience or meeting on Monday in Sacramento, and so I'm going more, exploring that a little bit more too. So, and then I try to, you know, share it if anyone's interested in what I've learned, you know, or what wisdom I've gleaned over 30 years.
What's some of the most profound, like, psychic predictions that you've made that really showed you that I am psychic?
Well, it's not so much. Let's see. Well, one is that I just a simple one, and I haven't done any world class, you know, profound things that turned. You know, I say I'm the cosmic oracle. I got that in meditation. I haven't really prophesized yet, really any kind of anything. I just haven't. I just feel like I'm more of my work is with people one-on-one and their spiritual path. And so, like one person, all I saw were these teddy bears, and I kept seeing them, and she said I'm crazy, and she didn't know it, but her mother had just passed away, and after her mother passed away, a week later, 5 to 7 days later, she received a card in the mail and from her mother wishing her something. I don't know if it was a birthday or whatever, but it was full of teddy bears. The whole thing was teddy bears, and that was her way of her mother talking to her between the worlds. That's the first one that comes offhand at first. I can't really. Let's see. What's another one? I don't know. There's just. I could probably keep going. I guess on find some, but that's the one that comes to mind right now. Is
oh, that's okay. I just wondered if you had done something. Like my sister-in-law had 2 ladies in her office, and she was doing a reading, and suddenly she looks over to the one lady, and she goes, "You're pregnant," and then she looks at the other one and says, "You're pregnant too," and neither of them had missed a period yet, and they were both pregnant. So it was like, wow. Okay, well, I'll pass it over to TJ unless you have anything else to say on that. Do you want me to pass it to TJ, or do you have something else to say on that topic?
I'm good for you to pass it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, TJ, your turn.
Okay. What?
Are you there? Okay. Okay, tell us about how your psychic developed. How did your psychic develop? Your psychic abilities develop after your near-death experience. What are some examples of proving it to yourself that you are psychic?
Okay. Well, since I was born, I knew I had the abilities because I had that little friend, that little ET friend when he was little. So I always go back to that. And then when I left my body, when I was a little girl, 4 and a half or so, and went up on the ship overhead and saw my body. That was my first out of body in my family. But it wasn't until I was a teenager that I knew I had psychic abilities, and I was using those to date and how I got married to my husband, because I was using my ESP like teenagers you see on these movies or something. So I had ability. But after I died, the question is how to increase my psychic abilities. Well, I'd already I'd already been out of body when I was in the second grade and died with hepatitis. So I knew what out of body and seeing the watchers overhead, right, second grade, when I died, when they put the machine on me. So I already knew I was that way, but I wasn't allowed to talk about it, nor did I want to, because I was already strange enough, and I was trying to pass for average because of me going to White Sands, if you remember, in third, fourth grade, and going up on the spacecraft with that, like the Allie Clark story, going up on the ship and coming down, and my teenagers going to sleep on the white sand dune, and my family come to visit me then. So I already had these skills that I thought were from the Watchers or God or Jesus or angels or, I'm a little kid, but remember I was never allowed to talk about it, told to keep to myself. But I didn't experiment with it until I met my husband, got married, and then had 3 kids, and then the baby had died. So when I died and came back and finally, after, I don't know, 2.5, the baby was, pretty big by the time I was taking care of her. But my kids grew up with a psychic mom, and I was PTA president, but I started reading books and going to Rice University. My mother went to Rice University and was a well-known writer and taking all these classes out there. So I'd go to Aquarian Age bookstore I found one day, taking her to Rice. She hated to drive, but she'd ask me, where you go all the time? So she finally looked into it and started reading occasionally, but she didn't believe in all this stuff. But she was curious. But I would go read all these books. So John Gray's mother ran it with her partner, 2 women, and they took me to the first MUFON meeting, which I didn't know about, because I told them about seeing the ship, overhead, and so I was having ET experiences and UFOs fly overhead, and I put a memory in there. But anyway, after that, I was searching. It made me want to know what happened, and so I was always looking for how does all this work. But I didn't share it with anybody, but I did with them. So they had me do a chart. So I paid my first $75 ever for a chart, meaning your signs and everything. So I learned what a psychic was, an astrologer, and they're different. Some are both, some aren't. But I remember the astrologer, I was going, $75, geez. Cause I was like, what is it for? But these ladies really convinced me I had to have one. I still don't understand it. I understood that, I could read the signs and all that, but I didn't understand what it was about because that wasn't what I was looking for. That's what they wanted me to have. But I did that, and I went to my first MUFON meeting, and I already was meeting with engineers and NASA and all that because my husband worked at NASA. But they're the ones that were really impressed with it, so that was before I'd even died. But after dying, Janet, I got more worldly. I felt like I could walk off the floor, and one time I literally felt like I levitated, and my kids said I did, but I don't know how. My kids saw I was really a weird mother. And sometimes I just tell people about their friends at school and stuff. So I got to be known the lady that was psychic, so that's how I learned the word. But I just tell people things. But they said one day it was a tornado coming, and we could see the tornado like out of Wizard of Oz. But I went and got my kids, and the wind was blowing. But I was so scared, somehow levitated up off of the they were up on top of this. You would go up this ladder and slide down the slide, and they were up at the top. It looked like a bullet, like a rocket ship, and we lived in a townhouse, and this was the little place where they play. But I was scared because of the tornado, but I don't know why. But I remember leaving Gigi. Now, she was 2.5 now, but she could sit in the window with the little Tilly dog. It was a little Scotty, and sit in the window. But for some reason, that she was small, I trusted the kids with the baby, so to take them over there. But she wasn't supposed to be on the top of the jet or, on that slide. And oh my God, but she's always been a daredevil since. She's one that just died, but she loved all that and, tilt-a-whirl and the roller coaster, you name it, she loved it. But anyway, so when I saw the baby there, apparently something in me made me hit this power that could raise up to the level. And I heard this from my kids, and then I remembered it. But I didn't remember it till I came back here. It never was important. But when I said, Mom, you remember when you got up off the ground and came up and got me off of the jet? And I was like, I thought she was hallucinating. I didn't know, what are you talking about? She says, Mom, don't you remember we'd go up this, and it was a tornado coming, and you came and got me off the jet. And then one of the other girls started, Mom, that's when we were climbing. Remember the telly dog in the window, but we took her, or you let us, or something. And we had Gigi on the top, and you floated up to the top and got her. And I said, oh, my God, do you remember that?
How many feet
I had to go back and, between 6 and 10 feet, because they had a screen around the tennis court next to it. So I remember when I got her that I grabbed the screen and lowered myself down. So apparently it was not something I normally do. And, I did it when I flew at night, But it's just one of those things that I needed to get my child, and a tornado was coming, and it was literally, you could see it. I mean, it was black. Houston didn't have them that often, but when they did, you knew it because it's so flat. You could see it coming like in Oklahoma. Wow. So it was coming, but we went in, and it missed us, but it tore some stuff up.
I'm going to call you Supergirl from here on out.
Well, I shouldn't have told you that because you're the only one that gets impressed with it. But I've never really told that, but only if my daughter. But she did. She always called me Superwoman. My children all thought of me, and when they'd watch Superwoman, they thought that was me. And then so when I dressed up at Halloween, I would be Superwoman, So that's sort of a thing in our family. But I had forgotten about it till just the last 2 years. But I had to go back and remember that. So that was very important. So then I became a tarot reader, and I was ordained in the Gold Pyramid in Houston, and Stephen Halpern remembered it, and he came to sell his CDs. So we need to have Stephen Halpern back on our show. I hope he's still alive, because he wound up being the godfather of New Age music. But he met me at Unity Church, Golden Pyramid, and I was really upset with them because I wanted a metaphysical something more than they had, but there was 300, 400, 500 people would go there, and one day God called me to the pulpit. So you can't tell me that there isn't a voice that says they are, but I was called, and I didn't know I was going to do it. All these people, we were singing something like "We Are the World" or "How Great There Are." Somebody, it was Unity, metaphysical type church, and I went up to the front, and this couple I told them I was called by God, and they were to ordain me, and they looked really strange because I think they were a couple that were in for the regular guy that ran the thing, and I remember them there because it was all these people were standing up, and I walked up like an idiot or like I was a zombie or something, and told them what they were going to do after the thing was over. It was after, the singing and the whatever they were preaching or whatever they do at that time. It wasn't that big of a deal. But I remember being in front of all those people, and I didn't care. It was like I was somebody else. And so they looked at each other and looked at him. They'd never done anything like that. They didn't know if they could or not. And I said, I was called up here, and you put your hands on me and ordain me. And so they did. I got ordained in the Gold Pyramid for God and all those above. So that's how I became a minister of metaphysical church, maybe. I don't know what I'm a minister of, but I did that. So it put me on a spiritual quest, and that's when I told you at the college I knew I was going, and then I wound up going to Africa and going to England, and I was just on this spiritual quest, and it got me in the military, and I became a corpsman, and then I went to Hawaii, and I went to Japan, and ran that corporation, started the Ascension Center, and the lightning bolt came down, and I got that symbol I use, the gold pyramid with radio waves, and guess who saw that?
Radio.
Astronaut Ken R. Johnston with 3,000 hours. Ken R. Johnston saw that today for the first time and got it.
Oh.
He was looking at his all this time. I thought it was just some kind of logo or something. But that's like a pyramid or ET ship, because it's a pyramid with two sides, and all these radio waves coming out of it. And nobody has ever said that ever to me in my entire life. And I've used it 30-some-odd years since they zoomed it on the computer, Janet. Remember you talking about psychic? Remember?
I remember that.
I guess you told me, or somebody said that, you must have done it, and the guy called me a witch. So I started learning about, calling down power and fire and making computer things zap on there. But I swear I didn't do it, Janet. I don't feel like I did. So I thought it was from, somewhere else. So
your intentions are
I
made.
started doing reading. Well, you remember when you met me in Hilton Hawaiian Village, so I was doing, I trained over 1,500 psychics, and I stopped training them then. But I had the Ascension Center Psychic Network and opened up the first Akashic records and put it in the newspaper, and that's when Michael Jackson came over. So my biggest claim to fame was reading Michael Jackson, who said I could use the same because I wouldn't let him pay me, several times. And then when he came back to see me and he bought out that restaurant down there, I was already seeing over at the Black Orchid, Magnum PI guy, Tom Selleck, and he and I had bodyguards in because by then I was on paper, millionaire, on paper and stuff. But anyway, this guy was trying to buy my company for $5 million, and I wouldn't sell it. And so we had this big cork store over in Maui. But I got to have the same bodyguards and all that, and the men in black and all that kind of stuff. And President, not Reagan, Clinton came over and with his wife, and it was all a big time, and it was all about me being psychic and reading Michael Jackson and not taking the money. And I don't know how it all got around, or maybe I don't know, because all he wanted to know is how to help downtown Vegas and people and friends in Vegas. And I told him to put up the thing over, and he didn't know, but I told him about going to cities and you see all the lights and stuff, just put one over. He said, what it doesn't cost the mayor, blah, blah, blah. I said, I don't care. You asked me,
I don't know.
And there it is. Oh, yeah, you don't know.
Okay.
Well, anyway, it was about
anyway.
being psychic, and that is the big thing was I helped him help business people. So he really cared about other people. So, yeah, so that was the big thing.
He had a big heart.
Yes, he did.
And then I have a Michael Jackson story, but how my psychic abilities manifested was that I could always see ghosts, and they would be at the foot of my bed, and they would try to talk to me, and they would talk to me, and they were always wanting help. So I became a psychic for the ghosts.
So we say you see dead people.
Older,
you're like John Edmund, right? You see dead people.
Yeah, I see dead people, and I've been seeing dead people all my life. And so when I met Sasha, and I had episodes where, I worked at Penn State, and students would come up, and I would help them schedule for their classes and stuff like that. And this one student came up, and I heard his thoughts, and they were like he wanted to have sex with me. And I'm trying to keep a straight face, and it's like, oh, no, I hear this person's thoughts. So I would get that all the time. These people would come up, and so learning how to balance that is like really difficult. And okay, I got to tune this down. So I always kind of kept it compressed. And I tried to tell my mother things. My mother did not like it. She tried to kill me. I was talking about ghosts and things like that. So I learned to not express that with anybody. But I was always very psychic and influencing things. And I remember I wanted to see the monkeys, and so I went into this psychic meditation, and I got an answer, and it said to be at the I think it was like the Sea Gate at the Civic Arena. You got to be there at a specific time. And I remember like telling my dad, we got to be there, and he dropped us off and picked us up later, me and my girlfriend, and so I was right there and I wanted to see Davy Jones, and so I was right there when we pulled in, and something, all the people screaming made the car stop, and the car stopped right in front of me, and there was Davy Jones right in front of me, looking out, and I was looking at him, we were looking eye to eye, and I put my hand out, he put his hand on the other side, and I had my fantasy fulfilled. So I had psychic abilities like that, and that was just one incident of many things. But when, and this is our Michael Jackson connection, I was in the middle of a deposition, and they were taking a break for lunch, and somebody comes in and says, oh, Michael Jackson's dead, and all of a sudden the room full of attorneys in their suits became these little kids. Oh, I remember this, remember that. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, we got to go back. So they, turned into suits again, and and they started to interrogate me. As soon as I was being deposed and they were asking me questions, I started going into tachycardia. And lo and behold, Michael Jackson just speaks right to me telepathically. He says, tell them you're sick. And it was in Michael's voice. I wrote. And without hesitation, I said, oh, I feel sick. Because I didn't want to stop, because I thought, oh, my God, I want to just get this over with. I don't want to have to do this again. So all of a sudden it was coming out, I'm sick, and they packed up their bags and said, we'll have to reschedule, and they never rescheduled again. But I'm driving home, and I hear Michael Jackson talking to me, singing. He's singing to me, and I'm trying to dismiss it. I go, wait, this is a little crazy. And so I am, like, cleaning up the dishes and doing all this stuff, and I go to bed, and I usually get up and pee 1 or 2 times a night. And when I get up, I realize, the Michael Jackson songs are there. One of it was Whenever You Need Me, I'll Be There, right? So finally the next day, it wasn't stopping, and I said to my husband, I said, honey, I'm being haunted by Michael Jackson. Can we do a session? So he put me under hypnosis, and as soon as I was under, Michael Jackson was so powerful. I was laying down. I literally had to get up on my knees. I threw my head forward. I'm like wailing, you know, like they see people do at these funerals. I was wailing, and he was so upset that he was dead. So we ended up doing therapy for Michael 4 weekends in a row, and finally got him stabilized. He was upset that the funeral was taking so long. He felt trapped over here on this side. He wanted to go on. And when he left, when he finally went on, and this is very interesting, Barbara, he went on to a spaceship. Michael went on to a spaceship. And I said, where are you going? He said, well, I don't want to go on the other side, wherever he goes. He said, I'm not done here. So we would have a week between our sessions. He says, I've been negotiating with these people, they're humans, on a craft, and they're going to let me hang with them and continue my work. So he's still here doing his work. Anyway, that's all the time I want to take on that. It's 3:35.
Well, Janet,
we've got another 25 minutes.
Can I say something real quick? Remember when I went on the spaceship and Gulf Breeze, and I went out and I told you, you know, how could it be Jesus? Because he looked like, you know, it's my Jesus, but he looked like Obama. Remember I told you I saw Philippe Coppens, remember, had died in November or something?
Yeah,
Well, you and I didn't know that each other had this Michael Jackson thing, and then I didn't know you saw Michael Jackson on a spacecraft, but that's where Philippe went. That's where he wanted to go. So when they took me up, who did I see? And he had long hair like he did in Egypt, so he and I had a past life together, and that was sort of freaking everybody out. But he sent me a picture of him and Richard Dolan's wife, I believe. He sent me that picture. And then he died. Remember, I was supposed to meet him there, and he had that girl. She was a friend of mine on Facebook. His wife had red hair, and they sent me a Christmas card. But anyway, I just think that's funny because I don't think all aliens are bad, that all ETs are bad, or that all spaceships are bad.
I love my aliens.
You know. So a lot of people think they're all bad. You know, a lot of people with their indoctrination or programming or Christian or Muslim belief think, you know, some are jinns and evil and can trick you. But, you know, everybody, we need to look at it. Don't say all this or all that. We need to separate everything. Like all people on the earth are bad or all people on ships are bad. Well, I've just been dealing with that lately, so I thought I should just mention that. But back to you. I just wanted to mention that about, you know, the person that you see that's dead but's on a spaceship. That just sounds weird when you say it. So I was just telling you.
Whitley Strieber said the same thing. Whitley Strieber was getting encounters with people that were telling about being on ships, and then they would see their dead relatives. So there's something there we need to know more about.
Oh, was his wife? Was it Whitley Strieber's wife that died? Was that Anne?
Wife died.
Was her name Anne?
Yeah.
I remember them. Yeah. She used to talk to me all the time. Yeah.
He was on stage at one of the UFO congresses, and he was describing how there were people that were now seeing their dead relatives on UFOs. So, and then I had a girlfriend that I had a girlfriend that I hypnotized years ago, and the same thing happened to her. I said, where do you usually take them beyond the death, and where do you go? And she said, oh, you're the UFO person, but I'm on a ship. So she was describing how she died and went on ship. So there's a connection there. Barbara, you're back. How you doing? You dropped off.
I am. It keeps dropping on and off. I'm hanging in there.
Yeah, you're driving. That happens. Well, I think we're going to wrap this up. We'll cut it just a little bit short, but final round to you, Barbara. What would you like to tell our listeners, and anything else you want to cover before we end the show today?
I just had a regression a few months ago with Barbara Lamb, and in that we went back to the spaceship part for me. And in that, I saw myself in looked like a cryogenic chamber, like it was like hermetically sealed chamber. Looked kind of like a coffin, like an open face coffin, but it was me in there, like keeping it all safe, kind of like a Michael Jackson thing, right? Now that I think about it, and it's where I'm in that on the spaceship, totally taken care of there, so that I could be here right now. That aspect of me having this, doing this. Right?
Were you in the future? That was a future life, or have you been cryogenically kept before?
Oh, we lost her again. Yeah, we're just going to have to wrap this up. We'll try it when she's going to be in a stationary place.
Okay. Well, can we? Could you let her know?
We'll wrap this up.
Well, I've got her email, right?
Yeah, you can talk to her. But we'll set up a date, and we'll have to be in June sometime because I'm pretty well booked. You might have an opening. But we'll set up another date with Barbara. Oh, she's back. Okay, let's just.
Okay.
We're going to. Are you back, Barbara? You keep dropping off. You're driving. So we're going to set up another date and we can go into this in greater depth because we didn't get into our extraterrestrial connection. But so were you in a cryogenic thing? Is it this time a parallel life? Is it simultaneous with this life? Explain that.
Our future.
Simultaneous. It seems simultaneous to this life at the same time. It could have been future. I didn't really, but the feeling was that it's happening now, right now.
Okay.
At the same time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. A lot of people believe that they're happening at the same time. How can they not if they're all in our mind, right? If they're all us now. I don't either. So that's what we're looking at.
Souls can be in more than one place at one time. That's what the Michael Newton Institute research is showing, that you can, if you're a very powerful old soul, you can have part of you can have a twin self here. You can have another soul, another part of your soul on another planet. It can be, so that makes sense to me, Barbara, that you had part of your, and that's maintaining your body because of the damage that happened from your near-death experience, or?
No idea.
Idea.
When
you were saying that, I got an image that they were healing you or something, and they had to keep part of you in cryogenics so that you could function in this 3D form. But that was just my psychic hit, and I could be wrong.
Yeah. No. Hey, I'm still putting together 30 years later,
What's that? Oh, you're still figuring it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
36 flavors, is that what you said? Like ice cream?
That's what it sounded like, 36 flavors, but I think you said 36 years later.
36. Yeah, there's 36 of us, right? Aspects of ourselves. Kind of like Krishna did, where you make replicas of yourself, You got so much work to do. It takes more than one of us to do it, right? We need 36 of us to get all this done.
That's a good point.
Makes sense to me.
Well, Barbara, we'll have to do this again when you're not traveling. I'd like to have you on my show, and we can do this again. And,
I'd love it. It's a pleasure
get to know you more.
You
too. It's great.
You.
You don't sound like I thought you did. Isn't that interesting how you can have a soul essence feeling all this time? But
I noticed that little bit of Southern going on there.
You do?
With you.
I wonder what gives you that idea.
I know. It does. It reminds me of Southern Georgia or something. I'm not sure.
Well, I was born in Louisiana, raised in Texas, had a Texas accent, but when I was in the government, I traveled the world, and then I didn't have an accent. But for the last 20 years, I was married, living in Kentucky, and then I was a truck driver. And so I picked up the country drawl. But how I did it was doing it. I would make fun of people, be honest with you, and laugh with them because they knew I didn't have one. I liked it. So I just got where I seen him when he done it at a place where he was at. That's a typical thing you see in the South, which is incorrect. It's but I live in Florida now.
Fixing to do this.
But, yeah, y'all
fixing to go. I'm going to go fixing to go fix dinner, fixing to. What is that
fixing
thing
to.
that you do before you actually do it? I'm fixing to.
I'm going.
Time. It's
near time. Yeah, and another thing I love in Kentucky, for the longest time I loved it because I worked with bluegrass people, and I loved the music up in the hills, and I lived in Ohio County, which was the home to Bill Monroe Bluegrass. But one of my best friends up there, Daryl, I just loved him, and he'd say, I imagine, but they don't say I imagine, but they say, I imagine. And I picked that up. Yeah. So I'd say people say something, and I imagine. And that's just what they mean, I imagine. But it's so fun to pick up colloquialisms, and in Tennessee, when I was living over there in Chattanooga working, they would say we-ins instead of y'all. They say we-ins. So it depends on what part of the South you live in as to what they have.
We said yens instead of y'all, and then the Pennsylvania Dutch would say yens. What are yens doing tonight?
Yes.
Y-E-N-S. Yens. What are yens doing? Instead of y'all. What are yens doing? Yens. And then the Pennsylvania Dutch would say, what are yens doing? U-N-T-Z. Yens and yens.
Yep. Well, Barbara, where did you grow up? I don't hear much of an accent, but I'm getting used to California.
No, I'm born in California, but my mom was born in Arkansas, and my dad in Mississippi. And so my relatives, all my 10 uncles and aunts, it's the way we were raised. We were raised that way. So it's still
so that's good. Yeah, well, see, I'm right next to Alabama, Mobile, Alabama, and then just right next to Biloxi, Mississippi, and my daughter works back and forth over there. So, we're all right here together. But
I
haven't gone to the Ozark UFO conference. Have you been to any UFO conferences?
I have, but I haven't been to Ozark. I'd love to go to that one for sure.
Well, I haven't been to any. Nary one. Barbara, nary one.
We'll have to get you to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Barbara's presenting at Contact in the Desert in what is that? 3 weeks? 2 weeks? Contact in the Desert. You're going to be presenting.
May 31st to June 2nd, I'll be doing the Cosmic Oracle, the cafes where people tell their stories. 4 of them. So I'm excited about that. But they changed. I'm not going to be actually presenting now. It's been changed unless it gets changed again. So I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
So, but I will.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. And then I am presenting at the Sasquatch conference in August in Chihuahua, Washington. So and that's a whole nother thing all about the Sasquatch thing. So
is that Kiwanis?
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Yeah, Kiwanis. Yeah, Laphrozitis and Kelly. Yeah. So I'll be speaking there. So and I'm going to be working with the kids there. I'm doing a thing with the children, helping them find a voice and speak their truth, or have a safe place for them to express their experiences too. So that'll be fun.
Wow.
I had Kelly on, and I remember having Laparitis. What's his name? Laparitis. I had him on my show first, and then I had Kelly. Yeah, he listened to my show and came on, and then Kelly did. I felt sort of like I put them together because I did readings for her and saw her with him, and they got married. So that was on my radio show. That's history now. Yeah, it's history. You can go put it together. So that's a psychic thing, huh, Janet?
Yeah.
Yeah. She'll have to go back and listen, or she may not want people to know that. I don't know, but I haven't talked to her in years.
Of course you would.
But I do have a Sasquatch story. So I had seen one when I was driving a big truck.
Go ahead, tell us.
Well, the Sasquatch, it was down there between Missouri and Memphis. I've seen two of them, but one was walking under a billboard with a bright light. So I saw him, and I was turning the corner to get on the main highway from Kentucky into Missouri, and I found out that was the area that sometimes they had them down there. But I looked to see what he was looking at because it's like 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. I had left Beaver Dam, Kentucky, and driving over towards Paducah, and there's a bridge and everything. But with the trucks, it's a typical route. But for some reason, at that time in the morning, he was going to get I think it was his wife and a baby. Anyway, it looked to me, I just assume, how you have this psychic thing and you see, and you don't believe what you're seeing at first, because I saw him first because the light off of the billboard. But then I wanted to see where he was going, so when I was turning my big truck, and you can't just stop these things and go, you can't hit the brakes, so because I was in the middle of a turn. So he was trying to dodge the lights, which made him move faster and bigger. And then, but I saw straight over on there was berries. So whenever berries bloom, that was the time of the year. And she was standing there with her baby getting berries off of the fence. And I just could see her because my lights passed by her, and he looked concerned because the lights hit. Because at that time in the morning, I don't think they were expecting anybody, but I came out of nowhere, like dark trees, to all of a sudden there I was, and I was by myself because I was off the normal time. So I just happened to be a strange time when normally they don't have anybody right there. And so he was looking at them, and I went by them, and then I put it together. My brain said, he was going to see about them, but then I realized that's just like the one I had seen earlier down in Mississippi before you get coming up from Little Rock to, coming into Little Rock from like Texarkana. There's a road, like that way. I used to drive all the time, but it's been years. But I saw one same thing, real early in the morning when you're not supposed to be on the road, but sometimes you get caught where you got to be a certain place, and I'd want to sleep like 10, pull in 10 to 2, and then get up and drive. It was one of those early in the morning. So I think they're smart, and they don't come out at normal hours. I think they know the patterns that they live in. If they have to live in a forest preserve or something, that they're smart, that they've lived with humans forever. And just so you know, Barbara, since you're going to do this, I always said that I have a past life story of flying from a spacecraft into the Tibetan mountains up there where they leave the flags. And when I had a past life with two guys, I say that Tommy I was married to that just died, and the Tommy that I do this thing with Janet Stargate, the Cosmos, Tommy Hawksblood. But there was two guys, and we came down in the spacecraft, and it's like my name was Ariel, and I was like a person from another planet. But anyway, we came down there and we had to leave, but we crashed, and I buried them, but I got the people to put them in gold, their bodies. I taught them how to, take their innards out and gold them. And then, but we left the Yeti there. So the Yeti was seemed like there was more than once. There might have been another one that got me off because somehow I lived because I couldn't tell the story if I didn't. But we left them there to protect until we came back to pick. Well, we can't pick them up now. Or pick me up. Well, I'm here. I made it first. So it's just a Yeti story, but you don't have to believe me, but that's in part of my past life. But I think it's cool because... Oh, okay. Well, some people think I'm crazy, but that's okay. I'm just one of the crazy ones. I've died a few times. But I don't know if I got to tell them my stories. I wrote it up one time, and they put it in some Sasquatch book or our website. But it's cool. So I take all that they're just ETs. But they were to protect. Well, I guess not me because I'm here, but they were the protector.
Well, they seem to be indigenous, but they're somehow telepathic, so they can communicate. But there's an indigenous. Anyway, long story. We're running out of time. Okay, so final
save it for another time.
Minutes here. What do you want? Yeah, we'll do this again sometime when you're not traveling.
What did you call tonight? What did you call tonight? 3 psychic ladies talk about dying? Or what?
No. I'll go back to the description. 3 psychic ways to stop dying. That's a good name. That's a good name.
I love to laugh, Barbara. I love your laugh. It's hilarious. Well, Barbara, whatever we can do together, we'll figure it out. Whatever we're supposed to do. Let's have an event somewhere.
Let's do something. It's definitely a pleasure. I've heard about you for so long, and now I get to see why Janet talks so highly of you. Not that I didn't question it, but there's definitely a bond and an upliftment, when I'm talking with you. I can feel your love and your joy.
Thank you. Yeah, it tickles me to talk to you too. I get this funny, giggly girl feeling in my stomach. So that's good. That's my other brain,
go have
right?
Pie. I'm just feeling that. I don't know why. I might have been fasting, but I want pie all of a sudden. So that's a good sign.
Do you like lemon meringue or do you like key lime? I like key lime. What kind do you like? As long as we
I like them all. I like all of them. They're bad pie.
Well, I'll tell you what. When I meet you, I'll buy you a piece of pie. It's my treat.
All right.
Okay?
All right. We can call it Pie in the Sky. That's the name of it.
That's right. We'll have a pie meeting. Hey, that's a good thing. We can have a girl meetup group and call it Pie in the Sky.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about psychic and death, dying, and all the metaphysical stuff we want to talk about that you don't normally talk about with other people. That's start our own little clique. All right. Well, that'll be fun because I read people, but I haven't been doing it for like 2 years. Janet's been begging me to do it, and I wouldn't do it. Come on, TJ.
Tarot Tuesday.
Tarot Tuesday.
Tarot exchange readings. That would be fun.
I'd have to use tarot cards to get me focused because I'm a bilocator and I live out there all the time. I'm a hermit in my room, Barbara. You have to know. I'm one of those precogs. So you know how you got yours under control? I did too, but I'll turn it on or turn it off. But when I'm out, because of all the people, I can just know and feel. And all my kids are sensitive and empathic too.
Yes,
and my grandchildren.
Mine too.
So
and my grandchildren.
Yours too?
Yeah.
Whoa.
For sure.
Yeah. Wow. So they're real sensitive and feel everybody. They're real emotional, and they all seem to have ADHD or something. They're scattered all over, but they're highly intelligent, but they feel so
exactly.
deep. But you don't know how to teach them because there's no school for the adept, or the Sixth Sense kids. There should
be.
We're
going to start.
But I guess we're left to it.
For a while. And I think we're going towards that for sure.
Well, let's work on that around the world because they're sure coming in.
In the UK. In the UK, they identify these children. They separate them from the regular schools, and they pair them up. They do better when they have a best friend, so that helps them.
Look up real quick. Let me tell y'all real quick. The kid, he's working on the ET stuff, and I shouldn't tell you this because it's the same box that we use on the spacecraft. The fusion, like nuclear reactors. It's the kid that's on the YouTube. He said a teenage genius. You got to see it on YouTube. And I don't know how it came on my screen, but somebody picks suggestions and recommends them on my television on YouTube, and I'll watch them. But it was teenager nuclear something, But I saw the box. He drew it. You did? So he's real smart. And then he does a TED Talk. But Janet, that's the little box that's underneath the one like the ones Bob Lazar was trying to tell you about. When they used element 115 that they changed the name to. 116. Yeah. But what you got to get is his dad worked for Coca-Cola and his mom, I forgot what she did. But they just said that they don't know where he came from. Literally say, we don't know where he came from. It was on NBC News tonight or something. Or whenever I saw it, and then I looked it up on YouTube. But Barbara's,
you mean he showed up on your porch? You mean he showed up on their porch in a basket? Wow.
No, they meant because the guy asked, that was interviewing him, the journalist or reporter said, do you have any geniuses in your family? And neither one looked at each other like, no, not that we know of, like they're like, they feel like they're dumb as a rock compared to him. But the dad said when they took him somewhere at 8 years old and somebody said they had a scholarship ready for him, when he graduated, he said, I knew I had to treat him real special or help him or, because he was like, he didn't realize he had a genius on his head. But when they offered him a scholarship at 8 years old, he knew he did. So they tried the best they could. They're just middle class people to help him learn stuff. But he decided he wanted to make a reactor in their garage or something. So some guy set up a place in Reno, Nevada, or he got to go to Reno, Nevada. So he's out there where you are somewhere, Barbara. But just look it up because that's what we're dealing with.
We're running out of time. We're running out of time here,
okay.
So we're about to go offline. So, Barbara, what's your website?
BarbaraJeanLindsey.com.
And TJ, what are your websites?
AscensionAge.com, AscensionPsychic.com, TheresaJMorris.com. And if you're into UFOs, UFOassociation.org. So
excellent.
I've got a bunch of them. ACO Association.
AquarianRadio.com and NakeySpeaks.com. And I have JanetCarolesson.com. Okay, everybody all together now say aloha, goodbye. Aloha.
Aloha.
Okay. Aloha.
Namaste.
Goodbye. Total joy.
Bye.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Aloha. Bye-bye.
Love you.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.